Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson. I'm your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So, happy Labor Day weekend. Hope everybody's having a great weekend, enjoying it with your family and friends and all of that kind of good stuff. And even though it's Labor Day weekend, doesn't mean that real estate stops. It continues to go on. Actually, yesterday we just got a contract executed. So that goes to show you right there. And I believe today or tomorrow we'll get another one. So it's a good time to sell houses during the weekends and actually the holiday weekends, because more people are in town from out of town and all of that kind of good stuff that are looking to move here. But I'm going to start out with the stats like I always do. And basically, the number of homes that sold last week was 417 versus 422 the week before. And so this goes until August 23rd is what my stats go to. So next week, it'll be a lot more houses that sell because it's the end of the month. And everybody always goes for the end of the month. Not exactly sure why. I know, if it's a builder and that kind of thing, obviously they're going to try to go for the end of the month. But basically, when it comes to regular, everyday people, I think it just happens to fall on there, and people want to get things done by the end of the month because they're moving or whatever. So anyway, the median price of single family homes decreased to $418,000, which is really not a concern because it's still within that margin of basically where we go every single week. And the inventory actually decreased by 69, which in my opinion is good because that means that the market is stabilizing a little bit. So that in my opinion is a good thing. So of those 417, there were 40 of them under 250, 33 between 250 and 300, 114 between 300 and 400, 92 between 400 and 500, 107 between 500 and a million, and there were 31 over a million that sold. So when we're looking at the, in regards to, everybody's like, oh, are there a lot of short sales and foreclosures and everything that are going on in single family homes last week? There were no bank-owned homes that sold, and there was one short sale. So if you're wondering what a short sale is, and they are coming a little bit back right now, that's when people are underwater, meaning that they owe more money than their house is worth. And this generally is happening for people that bought them, I would say, within the last, probably since 2021, 2022. Ever since the interest rates changed, our market has been extremely stable, meaning that the prices haven't really gone up and they haven't really gone down. But there are some areas in some pockets where the housing prices have gone down a little bit. And I think that that's mostly like in new home communities that that the prices go down a little bit. Sometimes in more the outlying areas, we've seen them go down a little bit. And, but if you're in the core Central Florida area, generally we're not seeing too many short sales, and we're not seeing too many, foreclosures because people have equity. And so basically, even if you're behind in your payments, and you're thinking that, oh my gosh, I'm going to go through a foreclosure, you really need to look at it, because the chances are that if you bought it before 2021, for sure, you're probably going to have equity. And so you can sell your home and then you would be able to walk away with some money. And so I think that it's really important that people know that when they're looking at it. So anyway, just went through a little tangent there. But getting back to our stats, when we're looking at months of inventory with the 417 that sold, with the amount of inventory, we're at 5.07 months of inventory overall. Now, between 4 and 6 is considered a normal market, so it's not a buyer or seller market. And that's exactly where we're at with this month's of inventory. Now, we're still probably a little bit below the 5 months of inventory overall, because if you're looking at the whole month and we have that little spike that we have every time at the end of the month, then basically, we're probably closer to 4. So we're in that normal range, but not, not too far into it in regards to for those sellers. But under 250, they're only at 3.51, 3.71, 250 to 300, 3.82 between 300 and 400. And then 400 to 500, we go to 4.74. Between 500 and a million, we're at 7.919. So that's kind of where the glut of inventory is. And then over a million, you're at 6.81. So those two are more like a buyer's market than it is a seller's market. But for every price point, there are usually choices. And so as a result of that, you would think that the list to ask price ratio would be a little bit, reflecting of that. But it isn't always that way. 96.73 is what the list to ask price ratio is overall. Under 250, it's at 92.63. 94.54 between, that's over a million. And then everything in between is 97.28, 98.34, 98.16, and 97.28. So basically it comes down to that in every one of those price points, that it's the same this week as it is every week. On the low end and the high end, there's a little bit of negotiation. Under 250, because usually those houses need work. Over a million, it's just always kind of been that way. That's kind of how it works in our market anyway. And I think that it's mostly because those people, when they're coming in there, they're going to do about 10% of changes, regardless if the house is in perfect condition, just because of personal preferences and that kind of thing that they do. And they're looking for a deal. And so basically there is some negotiating room. And every week it's pretty much the same. So it's very consistent. Now, the average days on the market overall is at 71. And when you're looking at 500 to a million, it's at 80. And over a million, it's at 80. So that just brings up a good point that real estate is definitely local. Definitely, sorry, my voice is kind of raspy today. But basically, when it comes down to it, the bottom line is that, real estate is very local. So I'm just telling you about Central Florida in general. And if you're looking for your specific home, the best thing to do is to look at your specific zip code, subdivision, all of those kinds of things to really tell you what's going on, because it really gets granular. And, maybe if your subdivision's pretty small, maybe, like 50 houses or something like that, you're going to have to go beyond your subdivision. But if you get 400 or 500, 1,000 in your subdivision or that kind of an area, it's going to give you a really good idea in regards to what's happening. And most of Central Florida is in HOAs. And so, the houses were built pretty much about the same time. There's a various number of houses that were built out there in that particular, with only a few floor plans and that kind of stuff, all by one builder. So they're all very similar when it comes down to it. Now, you might have done a boatload of upgrades and that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, when it comes to an appraiser, you're not necessarily going to get a boatload more money. But what you are going to get is you're going to get people that choose your home quicker and those kinds of things that happen. So moving on to condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 125, and it was 115 the week before, so a little bit higher. Now that price increased to 270,000 as a median, which I think it was 250 last week. So again, within our within our range in regards to what's happening between like 250 and 300. So you can't just look at a week and say, oh my gosh, everything's going to be happening or everything's falling or increasing or whatever. You have to look at the trends, which is what we do. And the inventory there increased by 18. And so when we're looking at that, so that's not really too bad in the number of increase, but it's more than what happened, obviously, there. So how that breaks down is completely different than the single family homes. And we're looking at a lot more inventory when it comes to the condos, townhomes, and villas. So basically, there were 125, like I said, 58 of them were under 250, 20 between 250 and 300. 27 between 300 and 400, 13 between 400 and 500, 7 between 500 and a million, and none over a million sold, although there are 16 inventory. Okay, so we're looking at 8.3 months of inventory when it comes to to condos, townhomes, and villas. So they are definitely in a buyer's market. And when you're looking at under 300, you're under 8 months, right at about 7.7 and 7.1 for the under 250. Then you go to 9.69, 9.8, 10.55. And like I said, over a million, they have 16 and none of them sold. So basically, when you're and the list to ask price ratio, however, is very similar to the single family homes at 96.32, and it's lower on the under 250s at 93.82, and then staying right at the 97.98 for all the other price points. So basically, when it comes down to it and you're thinking about it and you're going, oh my goodness, there's a lot more inventory. Wouldn't the price be more elastic or whatever? And basically, it's not. 92 days on the market versus 80 for single family homes, which is not that much different. It used to be a lot more different a couple of weeks ago. So that's a trend that I'm going to be looking at for the next few weeks and see what's happening on that. But basically the bottom line is that, with condos, they're cheaper, but they do come with additional fees, and those all get included in your debt to income ratio in regards to whether or not you can afford the property. So say that it's $250,000, but there's a $600 or $700 or $800 condo fee, then basically it could come out to being, more like a $400,000 or $500,000 house that you have to have in order to afford it. So affordability is our biggest issue, I would say, at this point in time. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can catch us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was looking at an article here today that said that new home sales are flat and affordability worries linger. And it says elevated mortgage rates and higher building costs are sidelining buyers, pushing up supply and leading builders to lean on incentives. So basically, when it comes down to it, I would agree with that. And that's kind of what's going on with the resale market too, is that even though we have a healthy number that is selling 400 or so every week, and then this last week that, actually because tomorrow is September 1st, we will be having a higher number, in our stats next week, just because it's the end of the month. And basically, when it comes down to it, what I've seen with the new builds is that they are definitely offering incentives in regards to mortgage rates. And actually, one of the builders I saw had a 4.84 interest rate for Labor Day weekend. So if that's something that's of interest to you, then just let me know, and I will definitely get you in touch with those people and get everything going on there. So basically, when it comes down to it, the bottom line is that it's all about supply and demand and everything. So what do they have to do to make things happen? And so when it comes down to it, they know that if they do offer the home as a more affordable option, meaning that they've got a lower interest rates, then people can get out there, even though the house might be the same price as a resale out there. If you can buy it for 4.84 versus 6.5, there's a lot more people that can afford it. And they think that really everything that I've been reading over the months and years and everything like that is that the magic interest rate is about 5. That when the interest rate is at about 5, that you're definitely going to get a lot more buyers and everything like that. So some of the big companies are definitely offering that 4.99, and like I said, there's a 4.84 out there, and that particular company also has a 7.1 arm at 3.99. So basically, that means for the next 7 years, your interest rate's going to be at 3.99, and then it can vary and go up after that. But basically, so what happens is that people are interested in buying the properties at those prices because it's something that they can qualify for, it's something that they can afford and everything, and so they can do it. And so the interesting thing to me in this one particular area that I'm thinking of right now, there are 2 builders in there. One builder is offering this 4.84, the other builder is offering maybe a 6% or something like that, and their houses are priced higher by, I would say, at least 100,000. And as a result of that, the one builder selling houses like hotcakes, the other builder not selling very many houses at all. And so basically it does come down to price in looking at that, in what's going to work for people, because it is a lot of times, regulated by the government in regards to how much loan you can have. If you've got a car payment, that's going to go into your debt to income ratio. And so that's going to come off of the amount that you can pay for a house. And most people do have car payments. And when they go in there and they get that car payment, instead of like it being a couple $100 and it's $600, that obviously, enters into their affordability factor when it comes to a house. And that's why a lot of times people, when you're talking to a lender, they're going to say, hey, the first thing that you need to take care of is you need to take care of your house and get that all done. And then once that's closed, you can go out there and you can buy furniture or something like that if that's what you want to do. But you don't want to do any of that before you actually get your house closed, because if you do, then that's going to affect the affordability factor of what you can have. So basically what they're looking at is like of your salary, that no more than like 50% of it can go towards your debt, just on those aren't the exact numbers, but just on a kind of a basic basis. So every debt that you have, whether it's a credit card debt, student loans, car payments, your housing, all of that stuff should be limited to about, in a nutshell, around 50%. And if it's over that, then you're going to have an affordability issue, and you're not going to be able to qualify for the loan. And so when it comes to housing, that's the most strict when it comes to it. When it comes to buying a car, they're like, hey, you want to go up to 100% of what you're bringing home, that's not a problem. But when it comes to housing, that all of your debts together, just a rule of thumb, probably about 50%. So that's where the affordability comes in. And since the interest rates were at about 4% and everything, when they started inching up and going up, what happened is that the market kind of froze a little bit, and our prices have frozen ever since then. And that's kind of what the bottom line is in regards to where we're at and why the prices are staying pretty static. And so there's probably a little bit of pent up demand there of what people would like to do, but they're kind of staying where they're at. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about in the next segment is basically assumable loans that are out there that when I was looking earlier this week, there are 600 plus in just one little area that I was looking at of assumable loans. And so I'll get into that in the next segment. But in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was talking about affordability and assuming loans of people's homes that are out there. So if you are looking at selling and you have an FHA or a VA loan, they may be assumable, so you can check into it and see, and then you could go ahead and offer that to people that are purchasing the home, and it might get more people looking at your home in regards to everything that's going on and all that kind of good stuff. So basically what it comes down to is that what like I said, if you have an FHA or a VA loan on your house, and you could have it assumable. Now, most people think that if it's a VA loan that it has to be a veteran that can assume it. And it can be assumable by anybody if you're willing to give up your eligibility as a veteran to not buy another house at the moment with your VA loan. So basically, when it comes down to it, to get a VA loan, you are a veteran, obviously, and obviously we thank you for your service for sure. And that's just one of the perks that you get there. And you have to get a certificate of eligibility from the VA. Any lender can help you get that, and all of that kind of good stuff that lets you know that you're eligible for a VA loan. And then it's got like how much loan you can get for and all of that kind of good stuff that they go through to figure out. And the VA loan is the most forgiving, lenient, and everything loan out there, as it should be. And so as a result of that, more veterans qualify and everything. But you can only you only have X amount of eligibility, so usually you can only buy one house with a VA loan. So if you are selling your home, then you would, and you're a veteran, then you would recap that eligibility to buy the next home. And so if you're going to allow your VA loan to be assumable, that ties up your eligibility. So you just have to look at it and see. I recently did a VA assumable loan, and the people were going to be traveling for the next several years, and they actually got enough money out of their home that they got cash, that they were going to buy their next house with cash. So they didn't need that VA loan on their next purchase. So they were more than happy to allow the next buyer to do that, assume their particular loan. And so that is absolutely what happened. And so that's something that if you are allowing someone to assume the loan as a veteran, that you have to be aware of. Now, in an FHA loan, I don't believe that it does anything in regards to if someone assumes your VA loan. I don't think it affects the loan that you're going to be getting on your next property. So that's a different story. But an FHA loan is also assumable. So when the interest rates were 2.75, 3%, all of that kind of stuff, there's a lot of people out there that are sitting on their homes because that's what they paid for that's what their interest rate is. So thinking about going to 6.5%, which is I think what the average rate is right now, they're like going, whoa, that's a huge jump in payment. And so I'm just going to stay where I'm at. So when the interest rates were at that 4% percent, let's say, basically, or lower, we were having about 800 properties sell a month, houses. Right now, we're in the fours. So the number of properties that are selling every week is down significantly because of that. The houses were a lot more affordable. So our market is still really strong and happening and all of that kind of good stuff, but not to the extent that it was when the interest rates were way down low. And so that's really in Central Florida. The main thing that changed was the volume of properties that were selling. And so there are still situations where people need to sell, or, maybe it's that they're, like they're having more kids and they've outgrown the house. Maybe their kids are going away and they want to downsize. They're moving from here to a different part of the country, a different part of the city, all of those kinds of things, that there are reasons why people are still selling, and just because they want to move. So basically, when it comes down to it, we have had for the last 3 or 4 years, well, where the interest rates have been higher, that we have been kind of sitting at the status quo of that 400 to 500 houses a week that sell week in and week out. And that's been very consistent. So the interest rate is the other thing, that the variable that changed from, down to 3.5%, probably on average, up to 6.5%, 7%. We've gone that high or a little bit over that and everything. So almost doubling of the interest rate. And so doubling of the it's not quite doubling of the affordability, or lessening of the affordability by half, but it's been quite significant. The prices have not changed significantly, just the interest rate. And so it's really interesting to watch and see and figure out in regards to what's going on and everything. So basically, that's something that you just need to know and look at when you're looking at what's going on. So there are homes out there that people have at those 2, 3, 4, 2.75. I've seen quite a few of those, 3% interest rates, that are assumable loans. Now, the biggest challenge when it comes to that is that you have to look at what the balance of that loan is. So, for example, I was looking for somebody this week, and they were looking at a $500,000 house, and the balance of the loan on the house was $300,000. So you're going to have to make up the difference between that 3 and 5 of that $200,000. If you've got that cash laying around, then obviously maybe that's what you want to do, or you get a second loan, and so that would be a second mortgage that would be on the house. And so it's going to reduce the interest rate, but it's not going to reduce it all the way to 2.75. That original loan is going to stay consistent at that, but maybe the second loan is going to be at 6, 7, maybe even a little bit higher, because it's a second loan and they've got a second position. But that all depends on what your credit score is and all of that kind of thing. So you've got to look at it. So that's kind of the assumable loan as a seller is going to pull people in, but the value of the home may have increased significantly. And so the assumable part is only the part of the loan that exists and remains on the current owner. So that's where new home construction, which is where I started in the last segment, comes in, that they're offering like 4.86 this week by one of the builders that I'm aware of. They're having a Labor Day weekend sale. And so if you want to take advantage of that, just get in touch with me. But basically the bottom line is that, so them offering that 4.86 versus 6.5 is going to make that house a lot more affordable for the average person. And so the builders have gone in there to see what they can do to, minimize the costs to make the homes more affordable. And that's one of the things that they can do, is that they can buy down the interest rate. They're also doing other things to make the houses more affordable, like maybe they're not putting in crown molding, or they're cutting out one cabinet or something, all of those kinds of things that they can do as scale in order to make sure that the houses are exactly, affordable for more people. And like I said, one builder who's got that 4.86 in this one particular neighborhood and has it priced a little bit better is selling like hotcakes, whereas another builder's not offering that, and they're just kind of sitting there. So you've got to know where to go. You've got to know what to do, how to look for it. And with over 250 subdivisions in Central Florida, and it's bigger than that, it's more than that, you have to know where you're going, how to find it, and all of that kind of good stuff. And so that's how we enter in and help you out. And you're not going to get a better deal by going directly to the builder than going through us. And so it just makes sense to go ahead and use this when it comes down to it. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So a couple things that happened this week is that last week I was actually in Dallas, and so I recorded the show from there. So the quality wasn't quite as good because I was just going off of my computer microphone. So I apologize for that. And so lots of great learning and everything happened there. So that was really interesting. That was a Your Home Sold Realty conference that happened, that we were going through, in regards to what's going on in the market, and, how to work with people better and to offer more things. And one of the things that we talked about was how to get your home sold faster, and everything in this market. And so it was a reminder of all of the systems and everything that we have to make people's houses sell faster. And we absolutely do have that. And that's why our stats are, what they are. So basically, that's one of the things that we talked about. We did talk about short sales because they are starting to rear their head a little bit. Like I said, there was only one this week that sold. We recently did one short sale as well. But basically, that's when you're underwater as a seller, that you owe more money than it's worth. And you may not have the assets to come to the table, so we can definitely help you with that. And then the other thing that I did this week is that I was at the Florida Realtor Convention and Expo, and that was right here in Orlando on Monday and Tuesday. So it's like when all of that was done, I was feeling like, okay, it's time to get back to work, and now I'm feeling like things are back to normal. But for all of that, it seemed like there was a lot of stuff going on, and there was. But basically, it's always good to learn and to know what's going on in the market and how to be on the cutting edge. And that's basically what I strive for, what we do. And, we love to work with agents to get them to that same point too, to offer to the agents that we can teach them how to sell homes better, faster, and for more money and everything like that. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. But anyway, I'm going to get into now what baby boomers and millennials want in homes. Now, there are Gen Z people that are starting to buy the homes as well. Not all the Gen Zs, because the youngest Gen Zs, I think, are like 12 or 13, so they're not quite in the market yet. But the older Gen Zs that are getting to be about 30, they're basically, in the market as well, and they have different needs and things that they're looking for as well. But this just goes through the baby boomers versus the millennials. And the boomers are obviously downsizing, but not downgrading. They want smaller footprints with nicer finishes, whereas millennials are looking for compact but efficient spaces that maximize every square foot. So basically, when you're looking at the comparable there, both of them are looking for a smaller footprint because it might be more affordable. So if you're sitting on a huge house, who is the buyer for that? And that just is something that has to be determined and that we figure out and all of that kind of good stuff. So layout preferences. Boomers are looking for the traditional layouts with separate rooms are still popular, whereas millennials want the open floor plans and multi-use spaces top their wish lists. And I think that comes down to probably as well in regards to the families and everything. If a boomer is there and, they want that separate dining room and living room, and then they've got the family room and all of that kind of good stuff, they've got different spaces to spread out. Whereas the millennials, maybe they've got younger kids, but many of them have older kids as well now, but, that are looking for that open concept where everybody can be together. Location priorities. The boomers are looking for quiet neighborhoods, sometimes rural or suburban areas where they can enjoy peace and space. And a lot of times what I hear people asking for is no HOAs in our market, and that is really difficult to find, especially if you want a newer home. But basically that's where they want to enjoy their peace and space, and they don't have to go too far to make things happen. Millennials, they want walkable areas with access to restaurants, parks, and public transportation. So that's another difference that they've got. When it comes to technology integration, boomers are warming up to tech that makes life easier, like voice assistants or video doorbells. Warming up to that. That seems so funny to me. And millennials are beginning to expect smart features as standards. So that's something that's going on there. A home as investment versus lifestyle. The boomers view homes primarily as long-term investments, prioritizing resale value as a proven feature that holds their worth, whereas millennials treat homes as lifestyle statements, willing to sacrifice some resale potential for features that match their current needs. So that's an interesting difference that they've got there. Space functionality. Boomers want enough room for guests and hobbies, plus storage solutions. That's why they want those separate rooms, because they want that hobby room that they can just go ahead and close the door. Whereas millennials are looking for flexible spaces that can evolve. So it might be a home office that can go into nurseries, or guest rooms that double as gyms. So one of the things that, I've always been taught, and I do think that it makes a difference when you're showing a house, that people are looking for a space that is just that space. For example, if you have, I used to live in Chicago in a one-bedroom condo. So for that, you would have a lot of things that were going on in that bedroom. It was your exercise room, it was your office, it was your bedroom, it was all of that kind of stuff. And basically when it comes down to it, that's what they're saying no, that they don't want that to happen, that they want everything to be, that you can use multiple spaces. But the baby boomers, no, they want to have space for everything. And then maintenance expectations for the baby boomers, they want low maintenance features and quality construction. They want to be able to age in place as a high priority, and many buy new homes to avoid renovation headaches, whereas millennials are willing to take on previously owned homes and tackle improvements and all of that kind of good stuff. So the bottom line is that these two powerful demographics continue shaping housing demand in overlapping markets, and understanding these generational preferences can help explain why some homes might fly off the market while others sit for months. And I think that that's somewhat true in regards to what they're saying there, but it also comes down to the way that you do things and what's going on and everything in the market and the competition. So you've got to look at the whole big picture, and that's what we always do, and then be able to figure out a way that we can put that best foot forward to make the best things happen. And that's what we're all about. But I'm out of time for today. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you next week. And we hope everybody has a great Labor Day weekend. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.